All right, this is Max Rogers, and I've got my grandma, my mom, and my stepdad for my John F. Kennedy moon speech. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy gave a speech at Rice University addressing the current space race situation. In this address, he motivates the audience to support the space race against Russia in a particularly patriotic way. We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the last 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of about half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except that at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then, about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from their caves to construct other kinds of shelters. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a car with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year, and then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored and measured the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week, we developed penicillin and television and nuclear power. This is breathtaking pace, and such a pace cannot help but create new ills as it dispels old. So it is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are a little bit longer, to rest, to wait. If this capsuled history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man, in his quest of knowledge and progress, is determined and cannot be deterred. Those who came before us made certain that this country rode on the first waves of the Industrial Revolution, the first waves of modern invention, and the first waves of nuclear power, and this generation does not intend to be the founder of the backwash of the coming age of space. We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world look up into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but a banner of freedom and speech. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction, but with instruments of knowledge and understanding. Yet the vows of the nation can only be fulfilled if we in this nation are first, and therefore we intend to be first. In short, our leadership in science and in industry, our hopes of peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort and to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all man, and to become the world's leading space-faring nation. We set sail to this new sea. There is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people. For space science, like nuclear science and all technology, has no conscience of its own. Whether it will become a force of good or ill depends on man, and only if the United States occupies a position of preeminence can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying theater of war. I do not say that we should or will go unprotected against the hostile misuse of space, any more than we would go unprotected against the hostile use of land and sea. But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made in his extending his writ around this globe of ours. In the last 24 hours, we have seen facilities now being created for the greatest and most complex exploration in man's history. We have felt the ground shake and the air shattered by the testing of the Saturn C-1 booster rocket. Many times as powerful as the Atlas, which launched John Glenn, generating power equivalent to 10,000 automobiles with their acceleration on the floor. We have seen the site where 5 F-1 rocket engines, each one as powerful as all 8 engines of the Saturn combined, will be clustered together to make an advanced Saturn missile. Assembled in a building to be built at Cape Canaveral, as tall as 48-story structure, as wide as a city block, and as long as 2 lengths of this field. We shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely back to Earth. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may as well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We chose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize the measure of the best of our energies and skills. Because the challenge is one that we're willing to accept. One we are not willing to postpone. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure that man has ever gone. Thank you.